Good evening. We're going to call the Board of Appeals meeting for November 8th, 2017 to order at 7 o'clock. We have a full complement of members here today. Two cases on the docket. First is a continued case from the last meeting, case 2817. Michael Welch, map 54, parcel 41, to acquire a special permit in accordance with 6.1.6.4 to demolish a single-story dwelling and construct a two-story dwelling 8 feet from the side yard lot line, 7 feet from Glen Road, and 12 feet from Road Street for a property located at 95 Glen Road. And this is a case that was originally brought forward last meeting, and the petitioner decided to defer this meeting until, so we had a full complement of members on the board. Come on up, sir.
Hello.
Hi, Mike. We got everybody here, Mike, so why don't you go through your application and tell the board what you're looking for.
Sure. We're proposing to tear down the existing house and rebuild a brand new 20 by 44 foot two-story home. The new house will not encroach any more than the existing home is already non-conforming on every side, between the house, the decks, and the sheds. So our new home will decrease the nonconformity on 3 sides, being the front, the right side from the street, I'm not sure north to south, the rear, and then the left will hold the existing nonconformity of 8 feet. The existing home there is only a 1-story home, barely a 1-story, and so we'll be increasing the height vertically. So I guess we'll be increasing that nonconformity vertically.
Okay, so you're increasing the nonconformity by going up. One setback's remaining the same, which is nonconforming, and you're decreasing the other 3. Is that right?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Any members of the board initially have some questions or comments? Questions for the applicant?
Well, I don't think you're decreasing it on 3 sides. You're holding 12 feet on the right.
Well, on the right side, there's a deck that actually goes right to the lot line.
Okay.
So-
The house itself, though, is staying at 12 feet.
But the structure is non-conforming right to the lot line, so it's a decrease, or it's a holding the, however you want to say, but as far as I know, I can rebuild the deck right on that existing footprint,
But
so.
the house itself is staying on the house structure. The house is staying at 12 feet, and then the front side is staying at the 7 feet on the front corner and front left corner, and then there isn't even a dimension on the other side.
Excuse me.
And then you're decreasing the setback along the left side. Right?
Okay, anybody else have any questions for the applicant or any comments before I open it up to public comment? Yeah, I'll get that at the end before we
I had
deliberate.
one more thing to give to the board. We were able to get a septic plan completed, and I have the house originally on the plan you guys have it. It's closer to the street. We were actually able to move the house back farther to 14.5 feet on the left side. It's much closer now, and that had got us 2 parking spaces in front of the house versus 2 tandem spaces on the right side. So.
I can see that, Mike.
You want to see the septic plan?
I'm just reading the plot.
Yep. I have all copies here. I meant to give those all out to you first. Thank you.
So the septic's going in front of the house.
The septic's going in the rear of the house.
I will read one department head note that probably should be read into the record now because it's applicable to what the discussion is. This is from the Town of Wilmington Board of Health. To the Board of Appeals from Shelley Newhouse, Director of Public Health, indicating that as of November 8th, this is to advise you that the Board of Health has not received a septic system application for the above referenced address.
Yes, I received a proposed plan today from 11/8 from my engineer, showing the septic system. The septic system is in the rear of the house. A portion of the rear of the home will have a crawl space to help keep. If it didn't have a crawl space, I would have had to keep the house farther forward like we had it. So.
And also, just while I'm at it, the Director of Planning and Conservation issued a memorandum to the Board of Appeals, and the date of it is October 4th, and it says, at its meeting on Tuesday, October 3rd, the Planning Board voted to recommend as follows on the application. Upon motion duly made and seconded, it was unanimously voted that the plan lacks pertinent information, specifically the percentage of impervious coverage in the groundwater protection district, the location of the septic system, the location of the proposed driveway, and clarification on whether the existing foundation will be used for the new dwelling. Without this information, the planning board is unable to make a recommendation at this time. Additionally, the board voted unanimously that the front yard should be increased. I don't know exactly what that means, but increasing the front yard. Well, I'm assuming they mean the setback, but it does not say that. It just says that the front yard should be increased. Anything further from the board before I open up the public hearing?
I do. Is this in the groundwater protection district? Is this in the groundwater protection district?
I don't know. Is it on, usually it's on the application.
Well, that.
There's nothing in the application indicating that this is,
Usually at the top of the application to the board, that one there.
Right, but the applicant could have made a mistake. I mean,
Did they not put groundwater protection district on?
the other thing you just read in.
I don't know. Are they?
Says it is.
You don't know?
I think it is in the groundwater protection.
Then you need a special permit for that too.
Groundwater protection?
Yeah.
well, why don't we can decide whether what we want to do with the application after we at least hear from anybody that may have come from the audience that wants to speak on this. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on this application? Sir, can you please give us your name and address?
My name's Ed Vassar. I live at 93 Glen Road. I'm to the right of that property there. And, you know, I can't see how that lot is nowhere near conforming, you know, to 10,000 square feet. It's hard to figure out how you can fit all that on that lot, you know? And I have concerns that, is this house gonna have a basement?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
But that means you have to raise that property up a considerable amount, like probably 6 or 8 feet from where it is now, because I have a split entry, and so I only have a half a basement in the ground. And when the water table is high, if you get a good rainstorm, my pumps are gonna go on, or I'm gonna have water come into my basement. So I can control it the way it is, and without getting water in there, but I had to add a couple of pumps. So that means if you're putting in a full basement, that property has to go up probably close to 8 feet. And I'm worried about all that, the runoff going over to my side driveway and everything. I spent a lot of time and effort. I had 10 loads of gravel brought in there. I maintained that for like 34 years, done the snow blowing and all that stuff. And I don't want headaches from that, you know. I don't know if you're gonna build it up that much, whether you're gonna put a retaining wall, so I don't get all that runoff from there, but I'm very concerned about that.
Do you want to address any of the
Just,
points that were brought up?
Yeah, we did a test pit on the site. The high water table is elevation 94 in the ground. The grade of the ground is 98, 3.5 feet higher than high water.
Yeah, but you
So-
did that test hole when the water table was like way down. We hadn't had rain in a long time, right?
Right.
And trust me, it's gonna come up a whole lot more than
Right.
what it was when you did it.
I'm not an engineer at all, but I do know it doesn't go by standing water, it goes by the markings in the soils, and I don't know what those markings are, but the markings in the soil tells them how high the water's been over time.
I
That being,
understand, but I'm talking from experience. I live right next door.
right,
And my neighbor on the other side of me, she's just a little bit lower than me, and she has a lot worse problems. Her pumps are going a lot when the water table's up there.
The driveway area you're talking about isn't actually a driveway, that's actually a road street, it's not your
Yeah, I know.
driveway.
Well,
So it's actually a,
but I was told I could use it for,
you definitely,
to get,
well,
to
I
get
say you definitely,
in my garage.
I'm pretty sure that you and the owner of 95 Glen Road have to the middle of that paper street. So 95 Glen Road has just as much right to use that access as you do.
Yeah, right. I agree.
So that isn't a driveway, so there's not gonna be any shedding of water onto your property, because the property you're referencing is actually the road.
Well, at one time, I petitioned the town to see if I could hot top that, you know? And they told me, if that's gonna give my neighbor a problem, with water running in on their property, then I couldn't do it. And so I never did it because of that. Now, my property, when it slopes down, and it's a little lower than the road, so I don't add any water to that road from my own property. The only water I have is where the driveway goes up into my garage, then I have a pitch there. But the backyard and the front yard, it doesn't add any water over there because it's lower. And you're
Well, I
talking
will
about
say this-
raising that up a lot.
I will say this, sir, if is indeed the case that this property is in a groundwater protection district, the applicant's gonna have to submit a special permit for that
Already
issue.
on his- I
is-
just looked at this, it's already, the groundwater protection, information is already on this.
But he's gonna have to submit a special
No.
permit on that, or no?
No, we
Because
don't.
the maximum is 2,500 square feet or 15%. This with the proposed house driveway, front walk and steps is, the total area is 1,356. So
Okay.
he's well under the,
So he's underneath it,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, so he won't need an infiltrator or something.
Okay, well, I guess that works in a way that helps you out a little bit, because they've already made a determination, he's in the groundwater protection district, and they've already made a determination that he's underneath the amount of impervious area that he's allowed to have. So, at least, so he doesn't need any water infiltrators or anything like that. So I don't know, I can't address your particular situation, that's not really in front of us, but as far as the groundwater protection, it looks like he's beneath the guideline limit, so.
And we actually, all of our impervious area is going into an infiltration system on site. So our driveway, our roof runoff and everything, there is an infiltrator on the right side of the house, an infiltration system, so,
Are you,
So
are you saying you're gonna put soil in there that'll make the water drain in,
No, I'm
quickly, so
saying
it doesn't run off?
pretty much, I'll show you right here. Right along this section here. There's a stormwater management trench. It's basically a miniature septic system, but it's not for the sewer water.
For the street?
It's for the roof runoff, all the downspouts and everything will connect to a pipe. Actually, it's actually on the other plan, but it's a lot smaller, so I moved stuff. So all your roof runoff, your driveway runoff can go into the street, so I have to maintain that on the property too with an exposed stone trench also. And then in reference to solid floor heights and water tables, there is, back in the day, everybody just dug a hole, put a foundation, and then they realized they were 4 feet in the water table. Now we have to, by building code, dig a test hole, find the high water table, and then we go 2 feet, we have to be 2 feet above that. And that's actually on the plans, the septic plans. So that the cellar floor height is governed by the code, or it's actually governed by the health code.
What is the height of the cellar floor?
Elevation 94.5.
Is that, did you
Uh,
say that
actually-
was high water?
Excuse me, 96.5. It's on the, here's a septic plan.
Floor elevation is, 97.
97. The high water is 94.5.
So 97 is the cellar floor?
Yep.
And didn't you say the exterior grade was at 98?
On the front, it's 100.
Oh, I thought you said 98.
In the rear, it's 103.5 because of the septic system. And on the right side, it looks like it grades out to probably about 102.
But is the original grade 100?
The original grade is
That's
98.
what you said. Okay, 98. So the cellar
99.
floor is a foot below the existing grade. That's your proposal.
Yep.
Yeah, so that means you're gonna have an 8-foot set of stairs going up to the front door,
Nope.
or
we're not
seven
going to.
7-foot set of stairs going up.
Nope. I'm not going to.
How are you gonna do it then?
The front grade is 100. Oh, here you go.
Well, the,
What did you get?
the one you just handed us.
Sorry, this one has a grade. So this one, you can grade this out to 100, but I think we'll put that walkway about 101,
But if this is 98, 99,
99.
right, 99, so you're gonna go up a foot to the, you're gonna pick up a foot to the
Yeah,
front of the house.
right. And top of wall is 1045.
Top of foundation.
Yeah, top of 1045 is 4.5 feet.
There's a drain pipe in that road, you know, the town put a drain in the street, and they ran the pipe back, way back in the woods towards Lover's Brook. And, so if there was any kind of water issue, could, a drain or something be put in, to make the water run off into that pipe so it goes back further into the woods?
I mean, we can't, I don't think we can make him do that. I mean, with the issue you're raising, sir, you have a right to discuss it with the applicant, but that's not what's before us. The water infiltration that you were fearing into your property isn't something that we're considering here. He's coming before us for a special permit because of the setbacks on the property, because it's non-conforming. It's presently a non-conforming property with regard to setbacks. So your issue is something you may want to discuss with him, but as long as the wetlands, the groundwater protection district is satisfied, the amount that he's allowed to have for impervious area, that's all we can handle. I can't force the applicant to put a special drainage system to allay your
They
fears.
have to do simple stormwater anyways. I think that's where you're getting the infiltrator, is for the simple stormwater
Yeah,
stuff.
there is an infiltrator on the right side of the property where I pointed out. It's on. I think it's on the septic plan actually. Ray has. So
There is, three infiltrators on the right side.
back to the front stairs. I noticed that. So you have a concern of how many front stairs we're going to have. So
Well-
I don't want to have a whole bunch of front stairs either because I don't like the look. About 4 doors down on the other side of the street, it was 102 Glen Road. Now it's St. Paul. Small lot, smaller than this. And the front stairs come out, and I elevated the walkway about 1.5 feet, and that eliminated 2 steps. So it ended up with like a standard 5 or 6, probably 6 tread front stair situation versus a big, huge set of stairs off the front. So I was thinking of pulling that walkway up to elevation 101, which should be about, 18 inches higher, 12 to 18 inches higher than the road, and have a little flower bed there. That's what I did on the other house.
Yeah, but I am concerned about the height of the house and the steps going up to the house, and something just doesn't make sense, because if your foundation is at 104.5,
Yeah,
your first floor is around 105.5, right? So you have, and you said your basement is at 98?
97.
Okay, you said 90, 97. All right, so that's 8.5 feet floor to floor. All right. One of the issues I have with all of these projects that come before us is your front elevation does not represent what you're gonna build. And I am not comfortable approving any of these when they're on this tight of a lot, and they don't show the true grades and the true elevation to the front, the true elevation of the first floor relative to the grade on the front of the house. Because you're saying you're gonna ramp up the grade on the front of the house on the left side where the stairs are up a foot, but you can't really bring the grade up on the right side because the driveway's coming right up, basically up to the house, or else you're not gonna fit a car in. So that has to be relatively flat. So I don't see you being able to bring the grade up to
Well,
kind
it's
of.
gonna come up 1.5 feet over 20 feet is nothing. It's 1 inch per foot,
Okay.
if that. The grade at the street's 99.
Can you explain, I guess if they take their picture,
That got, you know what, this got cut off too.
Oh, okay.
Here's the full the foundation.
okay, that's a
so,
different one than I have.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's got the same one or not.
I mean, I got the old one.
I have the drawing right here.
You got the new one?
I don't know, I
This
have
is
the
the old
one
one,
that
it's not
was,
looking like that.
I have the one that was sent to us.
Yeah, that was the first
Yeah.
one. This is new, this is different.
Right,
Yes, I haven't seen
okay, I was
that.
going by the old one.
Do you have new ones?
Let me ask, any other comments from the gallery? Any other residents that wish to speak on this or ask questions on it? Going once, going twice? All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing on this matter. Board members, do you have any other additional questions or deliberation on the application?
So we're, oh, I'm sorry.
My only comment is, once again, and, you know, we were, on a couple of houses, we went to 11 feet for the boundary setback. Now, I mean, we keep on pushing and pushing, now it's 8 feet. So I disagree with 8 feet. Make a smaller house, I'm not saying you can't build on it or whatnot, but I am not for putting this huge house on, and we're supposed to agree to getting closer and closer to the setbacks.
The existing left side, the existing home is already 8 feet off the house. I mean, off
Doesn't
the lot
mean that
line.
we
Not the
can't.
left side,
Sure it is. The rear left side of
the
the
rear
house.
left side, the back
Right.
8 feet of the houses. But 85% of the left side of the house is probably 10 or 11 feet. There's no dimension on it, so I can't really tell.
Do you prefer to shift the house over and have equal on the left and the right side?
I can't see shifting, not much room. Right, the length of this house is what, 44 feet?
44.
And it's 20 feet wide, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the existing house that's here now?
It's 7, I don't know, it's really
don't
long.
have that.
It's underneath there, but it is,
Thought it was 50-something.
I think it's close to 60, because it's at least 8 feet out back and then probably 10 feet out front. I'd say it's 60 feet long.
50 feet long now?
60.
60.
It's probably only 16 feet wide, or 18 feet wide, probably, something like that.
Let me see, this one.
19 feet wide.
Any other questions for the applicant? Comments?
Well, I mean, I see these new elevations here, and I still, Tony must have told you this. There's no elevation that tells me what I see it on the plan there, on the septic plan. I see the grades on it, but I am not comfortable with any of these projects any longer, and I've said this for every applicant that's come before us, and I must have said it to you at least once or twice. I want to see the real grade, the real number of steps, and the real real elevation for the first floor, because I want it to go on the record where the first floor is being placed and where the grade is going to be on the front of the house, because I think this house is probably too tall for this lot. I think a full 2-story house is too tall. If this were a split entry, I would probably feel differently about it. But this is a full 2-story house, and I think it's too big for this lot. It's too tight.
Let me comment on that. So are we voting for the elevation, or are we voting for the setback? So what are we voting on? What's the appeals
This is a special permit, so we
for the setback? The setbacks
No, for the
Well,
non-conforming.
it's the
for the
non-conformity.
non-conforming lot, but it has, we're not voting on the height of it.
Oh, yeah.
That's part of the
That's part of
non-conformity.
the non-conforming.
But it's still within the footprint if he
But
includes.
but the non-conformity, you're extending it up.
In
This
the
was a
pa-
single story.
Yeah, just so I can clarify something for you, Tom. In the past, theoretically, going up when you're in a non-conforming position, they consider going up, extending the non-conformity. Now, in the past, boards have said it's not that big a deal, and some members have not taken that too seriously. But other members, it is theoretically and legitimately, it is extending the nonconformity by going up.
Now, my question is, if he fell within the setbacks of the boundaries, he wouldn't be here, right? If it was a conforming lot, no matter how high it was, he wouldn't be here, right?
Correct.
If he met all the, yeah, if he
Right.
met all
So
the
it didn't,
things.
going higher is really not the issue, is it?
Yeah,
How do you figure that?
because it's non-conforming, you're extending it. That's what you're looking at all the extensions, whatever the non-conformings are, you're looking at all those extensions that
Tom, I do this a couple.
So if they only have, for example, say it's only 8 feet off the lot line,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
That's non-conforming because it's not
Right.
far enough back.
Right.
At 1 story, you're 8 feet off. If you're going up, you're theoretically making that 8 feet another level. So it's technically called, and again, just to be clear, as long as I've been on the board, a number of members have not taken that too much to heart. But theoretically, it is extending the nonconformity.
If this proposal was here, and this applicant, we're gonna keep this house and we're gonna put a second floor on it, right? That's one way to view this, but he's not doing that. He's gonna tear the house down, he is going to put a wider house on, and he is gonna double the height of the house. So I have an issue with that. He's making it wider, and he's gonna double the height of the house.
Can I just add that, so on public records, they have it as 50 feet, 16 feet wide, and 54 on the other side, but I think they're including the deck in the back.
Well, this saying 44 feet, right?
I wouldn't put too much stock in those maps. I mean, if you have a plot plan, an engineer's plot plan, I would probably look at that.
But it doesn't have the existing house.
Proposing it to be 44 long, yeah.
I mean, well,
I mean, I'm glad that you're pushing the house back from the street. I think that's a very,
Right.
very.
We can't go back, the septic system's, the height, the septic system's always gonna be at 104.5, excuse me, 103.5, and that's what's governing the top of the foundation. The septic system is not gonna go any lower. It's gonna be a 3-sided retaining wall around the septic, no matter what, if the house is 3 feet high, so that's not gonna change. So the foundation has to be 1 foot higher than the septic system. But you're saying don't put a basement in, still the first floor.
I'm not saying don't put a basement in, I'm saying the house is too tall. Take the second floor off and build a ranch.
Build a ranch.
I think the house is too big for such a tight lot.
Right.
And I think pushing it back from the street, I think is a great idea. I mean, I think if you took this house and scaled it down somehow, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can do it.
I would prefer to do like a 26-36 cape, would be way better.
Well,
But
the
I
cape-
can't get 26 wide on the lot, so.
What happened, Mike, if you, and again, I know it's all about sales,
Well, it-
how much would you save by putting it on a slab, 4-foot crawl space? How
And
much
lower
would
the
that
height of the
drop you
house?
down?
Um,
I know the water table's at, what did I say, what was that water table, 94.5. You gotta maintain 2 feet above that for any kind of a floor, so that's 96.5.
so lower the first floor down lower than the septic system?
No. Your cellar floor would be at what now, so 97.
So call it 100, 101, just out of the floor, you mean? So
Yeah, in other
so-
words,
so
basically, you're gonna pour a slab and put a
colonial
crawl space
slab
under to
grade.
put your heat and,
So no crawl
heat
space.
and whatever you can, and duct, obviously, the poor sub would have to crawl under there 4 or 5 foot.
I'm
But I
not
mean,
opposed to
would
that.
that drop you down,
Just
how
trying-
many feet would that drop you, 4 or 5 feet down?
Yeah.
I know what he's saying, by the time you do
Trying to
this,
figure it out.
I mean, you
I'm-
look at your plan and obvious, I mean, that looks good, but now when you look at this one, you are coming up.
Uh-huh.
And which is gonna bring up the peak here that much more, which is gonna raise you up considerable. Wherever I had the plan of the, construction plan of the house. But I know it's tight lot, and unfortunately,
It's the width of the house is the
yes,
problem.
that's
You
gonna
can't
make it
do a Cape
even look
style
that
home.
much higher.
Even a 20 foot by 44 ranch is, how big is that, 880 square feet.
But I don't know what that would save you by doing it, putting it on a slab and, just basically putting your heat and crawl space under or redesign your inside for a utility
Just
room
on
in
the
the
slab
rear.
note, if I brought the slab down to 101, the top of the septic is still one oh four.
Yeah, it should change. That's
So the
not change.
septic, when you walk out your first floor, you'll, it's 3.5 feet higher than the first floor.
That's right. You'd be walking out and looking at it, so.
Well, top of the sill, but in other words, you're basically gonna have no basement. You're basically eliminating the basement.
So it is,
Which you know, somehow you gotta save, well, if you look at the plan, you have a basement, you gotta have 8 feet, right? 6, 8. And then you add your 2 floors, if I had that construction plan of 6, 8, I showed you per height. So, I mean, you know, you're trying to cut the first floor down, obviously, that's 6, 8, because that's starting to put you up. Give me a few minutes, maybe I can find what I had.
So you're saying still do the 2 floors?
It's gonna be 3.
see, I don't, well, I personally don't agree with picking lots within a residential area and governing the height, you know? Where the neighbors can go up to 35 feet, even though they might not be now, they can, both of my neighbors can go to 35 feet anytime they want. Even though, pardon me?
How close are the neighbors to the lot line?
Not, it's not even the point, the point is that they can be all 35 feet, so.
It's a big
Lot of times, we dictate the size of this height restriction by what the neighbors have. But at any time, that neighbor with the ranch next to us, say that was the situation, if they're 15 feet and they meet the conformity, they could put a colonial on a week later.
The height to me, is all relative to how close you are to the property line.
Right,
If-
I'm just
if-
saying, I don't agree with dictating the height within a resident, if you were saying it was a commercial, the last commercial lot next to a residential, and it was a small lot and you wanted to govern the height, I'd agree with that, but I don't agree with dictating the height within a residential
It's not
area.
I mean, it's your application.
Yeah, I'm
I
just
mean,
saying
you
in
can
general,
put
that's my
forward-
opinion.
You can put forward whatever you want, and then see if it can withstand the board's scrutiny. I mean,
Right.
you're not forced to go
No.
and change anything unless you agree
No,
with
and
it.
Tony does say like, oh, good luck, you know, and I get it. And, you know, I know that's not what you're looking for, but on this small lot, there isn't much, you know.
Why couldn't you just
it-
take this, drop the eave down to the first floor, put a 12 pitch on it, and throw some dormers on it? Then you can get 2 bedrooms up in the second floor.
So a 2-bedroom house?
I don't know, I'm just talking about a house that's suitable, I'm not worried about you making money, I'm worried about what the house is gonna look like on the lot.
Right.
So if you drop the roof down to the first floor, what would be the second floor level, put a 12 pitch on it and throw some dormers on it, and now you have a furnishable second floor. And now the house is more scaled.
Can I make the house 24 feet wide? That would definitely work.
No, I wouldn't go for it. I think it's, you know, you're trying to put a very big house on a very tight lot that is, how many bedrooms are you proposing for the house?
3.
3.
There's an existing 3-bedroom there now.
Yeah, but it's a ranch.
I mean, we can either entertain a motion, one way or the other. If the applicant wishes to go, quote-unquote, back to the drawing board
Right.
and request a continuance, we can entertain that. I mean, what's the board's
Well,
pleasure?
I don't want to take a no vote, so I'd like to get some input on if I came back at another meeting. You don't want a 2-story house, you would say a 12 pitch on the existing structure or the 16-foot, or off of the
No,
16?
if this 20 foot, if this footprint that you have right now, if you made it a dormered cape or something like that, now you're being more sensitive to the tight property lines. I don't agree with you that the house is not encroaching more on the left-hand side. I think it is encroaching more on the left-hand side. I could possibly.
It's not encroaching more, it's extending it, it's not encroaching more.
It's encroaching more for 40 feet of the, I'm sorry, 36 feet of the about 40 feet of the existing house, right? The only thing that it's not encroaching more on is the back little addition or porch or whatever that is on the back of the house.
It's 8 feet, and I'm not going closer than 8 feet, so our encroachment is not more than 8 feet.
If it
I
was
don't agree.
8 feet at the front of the street, I would agree with you, but because it's all the way in the back,
That's not how the bylaw reads, it says encroaching more, so the structure is 8 feet now, and we are gonna be 8 feet.
I'd have to.
I see what you're saying, I understand 100% what you just told me, but I'm saying that we're not encroaching any closer to the lot line.
But you're increasing the
We are
non-conformity.
increasing it 100%, but we're not encroaching anymore.
Okay, then you're increasing it beyond what I'm comfortable with, then we can
Okay.
use that technicality.
Wait, can I see that piece of paper, if that's the one I'm missing? Yeah, right there, the top one, yeah.
This one?
Yeah, let me see if that's the one. Ah,
So
that's it.
before I came back again, and, well, we didn't do the meeting last time because we didn't have members, I guess, so I chose not to do the meeting, but did I get some input from the people that don't like the proposal? I mean, I guess my options there's a house there now, there's gonna be a house there again, so what are the options for the owner? Bypassing, or not even having to come to the Board of Appeals and rebuild the structure, a ranch-style house, but you wouldn't be able to increase the height of the walls at all? You know,
I just think you need to come with a
No, I'm
smaller
just thinking,
scale.
I'm just trying to weigh out my options here. I don't even have to come back to the Board of Appeals and I rebuild that footprint. That 66 or whatever, 54, whatever, by
Footprint's
16.
non-conforming, so you have to come back no matter what, right?
Not if I don't increase the heights.
You have to come back no matter what.
I don't believe you. If you were just replacing what's already there and not having any effect on any of the setbacks, what's already there, I don't think you'd have to come back.
I'd have to ask the building department.
If it's non-conforming, I believe you have to get a special permit.
Can I ask a question? So, why is the deck included in the structure?
Direct that to the applicant.
Yes. They always are.
Yeah, the rear deck.
Yeah, it is approved.
So I wonder, when was it added? Do you,
I didn't do a background, like a check on the permits.
so if that was put on afterwards, then you would actually be pushed back if a permit wasn't given? If a permit, so say that the deck's on illegally?
It's not an illegal deck, right?
I have no idea what the
Well, I
typical
want-
protocol is. The engineer goes out and does a plot plan of the existing structures. I don't think they go back and see if permits were pulled for everything on the property. I don't know if that's how it works.
Would that be in the jacket, Tony?
I'd be curious to see when the deck was
Which
put on.
deck are you talking about?
back
In the
deck.
back? Is there a back deck? Or is that what you're proposing?
No, there's an
No.
existing deck back there.
That's the existing house. That lighter line behind there,
Yeah.
that's the existing structure. I don't think.
And is that a deck
don't
or
know
the
if there's a deck
house?
there or
That's what I mean. I thought it was all enclosed. I thought the only deck was this front thing.
Yeah, I think so. It's all overgrown, so and there's a lot of debris there.
I thought the original proposed dwelling
Here's
was the,
the assessor's stuff.
Can't really tell. Is this what you're looking for?
Yeah, and on there, the second page,
Yep.
where it shows the,
Talking the deck right here with that?
yeah, we're trying to
Right here.
figure out,
the very back end,
That's the back.
it'll have
No.
letters,
no,
Right here.
WDK.
No.
Existing deck.
so it is a deck.
Like the other
no,
thing you,
do you know what I'm talking about? Like,
it's on the street.
Says deck wood, gross area 96
Right.
square feet.
So it's just a deck, it's not enclosed?
No.
this part, right?
Yeah.
So that actually makes it come out
Right.
farther.
That's what he's saying, he's not approaching it further by. That's what he's using.
He's using the deck.
This is,
So I'm wondering, when was the deck put on?
At this point, it doesn't matter.
Michael, so the other thing you're doing is you're putting a retaining wall right on the property line, on the rear property line, the right and the left property line around the septic system.
Yes, that's.
That's about a 4-foot high retaining wall.
Yes.
Is there gonna be a fence on top of it?
At this time, we're not proposing a fence.
Has to be, right? It's over 30 inches.
A fence? I'm not sure if that's is that in the bylaw, or is that the
It's a code-
zoning?
It's in the building code.
We
wall.
typically don't put a fence on the top of 4-foot retaining walls. We build them all the time, and we never put a fence on top of them. Almost every garage under you see has a retaining wall, and there's never a fence along a driveway.
If you have a, I think the code reads if you don't put a fence up, you have to have a planting bed or some type of a determinant around that. But I mean, I would anticipate whoever's gonna buy this house, when you sell it, is gonna not wanna have a 4-foot-high retaining wall around the perimeter of their property. So they're gonna have a retaining wall. They're gonna have a 4-foot retaining wall and then a 6-foot stockade fence or a plastic fence on top of that wall at some point. I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
being realistic. I mean,
The septic system isn't relevant at all to the structure, because the septic's going in just like you see it on the plan.
I understand that, but
So-
I'm just, I look at this as, you're asking for a special permit to do something on this
Yeah.
property. I think the house is too big, and now I'm looking at what the septic system is gonna do to the, property line and the retaining wall, how it's gonna affect the property line and the neighbors next to it. So, my question is, if it's a smaller house, let's say if it was a 2-bedroom house, septic system probably get a little smaller, right?
Yeah.
Right? Maybe the size of it would get a little smaller, the field would get a little smaller, maybe the retaining wall might change, maybe the design might change, I don't know. But that could affect my overall, when I look at the size of the house, I'm looking at the whole thing. If this wasn't a special case, you wouldn't be here. So I look at this as trying to squeeze a big house onto a lot that wasn't meant to have this type of structure on it. So I think special care has to be given to it, or else we wouldn't be here.
Right.
So it's
Well,
not an open and shut case to me.
Definitely not gonna reduce the bedroom count. And the only way they're gonna get a variance to do, or a special permit to do anything, is the vote from this board. So we have to work with them. I'm here to try to see what you want, extract from you what you want, and try to come back with a plan that you guys will say, we love that plan. So far what I have is, we'd prefer not to go 8 feet off that left line, or extend that, but if we went lower to a 1-story house with a 12 pitch, then you would oversee that and possibly do that,
Can I ask you a question about the elevation of the septic system in the back?
Yeah,
If you put a Presby system in, will that lower the field?
I don't know that answer.
A Presby system, will that lower the field, the height of the field in the back?
Those,
I don't think you're gonna lower it that much.
Okay.
You know,
I just think this needs to be a
maybe
little bit more,
6 inches, maybe a foot. I mean, he's got a high water table there.
So no matter
3 feet.
what he designs, no matter what he does, he's still gonna come before the board with a non-conforming issue. A non-conforming, no matter what he does. So the question is, one is less conforming than the other, is that what you're saying? His plan, if he comes back with a newer plan, it's gonna be less conforming, but still non-conforming, right? It's gonna be non-conforming.
it'll be less, I want him to come back with something that's less detrimental
Okay,
to
so-
the area.
So the question is, he's got, and I think it's fair, and is, what exactly are we looking for? He shouldn't come back and guess what we think we're gonna say is okay. If we're directing him to come back with something less, we need to say, okay, conformance should be this, and non-conforming should be this, and we will let this go. So he's gonna spend time, he's gonna spend money and redesign and come in here and hope that he's got it, and that's not fair to him.
No, it's not, I don't think the burden is on this board
I think it is.
to direct the applicant as to how he should design his house.
You have to give me some kind of a direction.
I have, I think I've been very clear, I think the house is too big, and I think you need to come back with something smaller.
Right, but how smaller?
I suggested a dormer
Right.
cape.
Am I definitely gonna get the 8-foot setback on the left side? Are you gonna vote for that, is my
If
question.
you come back with a dormered cape
Yeah.
and show me some elevations on the front that match what you're I have no problem with the setback on the left-hand side, as you.
Would
as you
anybody
have
else
it.
on the board have a problem with that, or would we have to bring back a plan to decide?
And that's the question. The question is, we set him on his way and say, we don't like what you have, and that's fair. And then you say, come back with something else. We're not quite telling you what it's gonna be. You need to rethink it and get it smaller. And he's asking, how small? And what's my shot in getting it approved? I need to know what you're looking for, and that's a fair question to the board. It's a fair
Tom,
question.
but they come in here, developers, owners, whoever it happens to be, I'm not singling out developers, but they come in here and they ask for the world, right? They're shooting for the biggest house they can possibly put on this lot. And that doesn't mean they're gonna get it, or that it's appropriate. So they can ask for the world, and then they have to pare back to something, in my opinion, that's more reasonable for this
Well,
lot.
he's saying what's appropriate and what's reasonable to the board so you can get this through.
My measure of reasonable, and your measure of reasonable, and yours might be different. I just think something smaller than this is more appropriate.
I think what we gotta do, first of all, is, the first concern is the height. So the issue becomes, when you say, I thought you said a cape, right?
I said a dormer cape or a split.
Dormer cape.
Or a split
The
entry,
question
one or the other.
becomes, how much, I mean, you've built enough houses. How much height compared to what you're showing now, are you gonna say with a dormer cape? Because again, you're gonna have to start off at the, if you're telling me you're gonna have a basement, your foundation starts off at the same height.
Yes.
So the question becomes now, that plan that I just looked at, I mean,
A
I
12
had,
pitch roof,
I mean, I don't think
It's
you're gonna
10
save that
feet
much
high.
height.
so we have an 8-foot first floor wall plus a 10-foot second of pitch, so we'll have 18 feet plus the 4.5 feet of foundation is 22.5 feet of house. Right now, we have 8, and
8.6.
it's 20, we have 26 feet house. We'll probably go down 3.5 feet. That's,
Not a big
I
change.
think that is pointless,
Okay, then
be honest with you.
build a split.
That just,
Well, or the ranch.
yeah, but we don't wanna build a split, that's what I'm saying.
Again.
I
we
totally
can't
disagree
tell-
with
We
it.
can't tell the applicant what to build. I mean, I think that's unfair to say, why don't you build this and why don't you build that? That's his choice. The question again is, what is our expectations? I don't know the answer, of what would be acceptable to this board in terms of a non-conforming lot. And I think that's the question. So we can say, build a split, build a slab, put a slab in, put a dormer in and stuff. I mean, he needs to know, he's thinking, we're gonna reject this, and he's saying, okay, tell me what dimensions will get it through this board's in non-conformance, and that's a fair question. But you can't have him, again, go out and think of what we would approve and then hope for the best. I mean, I'm not following that. If we're saying no, we have to tell him why. And if we tell him why, he's gonna say, I think, I'm not talking on your behalf, but he has to say, you have to say to him, okay, it's this height, so we're gonna drop it, if you drop it to this height, we'll go along with it. I think that's the way this board should operate. You just can't, I think, I probably will not, I'd like it smaller. That's not fair to him, or anybody who comes across this board. This is my opinion.
Basically,
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair comment. I mean,
What I asked is what the height's gonna be set at. In other words, how much, I mean, everybody wants to restrict the height down. So the question is, how much are we gonna restrict the height down? Are we, like you said, are we gonna restrict them to a ranch, which is considerable, almost close to what's there now? That's basically a ranch height, what's existing. Are we gonna give them a split, which is basically, 2.5 floors?
There hasn't been a ranch
Or
built in 30 years.
you're gonna go with a colonial with a full third basement. I mean, if everybody looks at that plan right there, that tells you what that height's gonna be. There's the 2 floors, there's your basement floor, and there's your peak. So if you add that all up, there's your answer. Now, that's the maximum. How much do you wanna cut that, what he's showing down? That's the question. If you want, you send that over to, I guess, have him look at that. That's the height that he gave us, so basically, that's the question.
I was just doing some quick math. It is 22.5 feet from the grade if there's 4.5 feet of foundation showing for the it's Cape style house, and it would be, even if I lowered this to a 6 pitch, 4.5, 20.5, 10 sixes is 5. It'd be 25.5. So it's about 3.5 foot difference from the colonial to the Cape.
That's why I was
So
saying
it's
if-
not drastically huge difference. I can use pre-cut 88-inch studs instead of 8. There's a foot there. Can I lower the first floor down? a couple feet, I mean, you know, I don't have to build a colonial. If the house was 24 feet wide, then Cape's a no-brainer. I know that's what you guys are looking for. You don't want to do a colonial on the small lots. And just from the comments in the past, the 2-story house with the 5-foot wooden knee wall below, 15 stairs to the street. I don't want that either. It doesn't look great. It's not that high curb appealing. I just received these plans today, and I did see that there was like that 100 grade around the stairs to the top of foundation, plus the floor is gonna give me 60 and a half, 65 inches, 8 steps, so I wanted to elevate that walkway about 1.5 feet, exactly how I did it 3 doors down on the other side of the street, and that eliminated a whole bunch of front stairs, and it looks nice, a little planting bed around there, so. And it also gives a little separation from your property to the public sidewalk. So,
Mike, well, I mean, if you were to pour a slab, no basement, change your floor plan, utility room would have to be, you have to change it, see if you could
Yeah, we could work a
squeeze,
utility room
squeeze
there.
a little more length in the house.
Right.
Your setback is maximum, like, I think you said your setback, you're adding greater distance off the road for your setback that you came in with, right?
Right.
So I think if you could put a utility room in the rear, you know, on a slab house, there's a
Yeah.
few in Hathaway Acres at Capes, right?
but what
But
height
they're on
would the slab,
slabs.
what height would the slab be? Would it be lower than the top of septic?
I guess your engineer would have to tell you what you can maintain or
I mean,
what your floor could
folks,
be
let
at.
me see if I can corral this a little bit. We're not in the business of telling an applicant how to build a house. I mean, I don't want to go in that direction. If everybody comes before the board and we start talking about stylistic issues and what looks better and this and that, I mean, if a member has an issue with a dimension, that's one thing. But I do not want to go off into the wild blue yonder here, and pretty soon we're going to be talking about trim and draperies, and it's just, we're going to be going out of control. So why don't we have one member that's expressed a concern, you know, if you want to come back and go back to the drawing board, you said you just got the plans today. It also looks like maybe the Board of Health, you know, wants to take a peek at what you have too.
Yep.
So, I mean, maybe what we can do is just continue the hearing. Well, would you be amenable to that? I mean, you have a right, if you want to go forward and and go for a vote today, I mean, you have a right to do that. That's why I said I don't want to be guiding your hand too much on this.
Well,
But,
I'm not the owner of the property. I'm in the
Right.
process of hopefully buying the property. I will be buying the property, but I'm not gonna take the risk for the owner. It's in a family estate that I get a negative determination and they can't do anything with the property for a couple of years, any kind of variance or whatever.
I don't think that doesn't work for a special permit, does it, Tony? It does?
Yeah, I think it's 2
limit on
years,
the
so
project?
I'm definitely not gonna take the risk of getting a no vote, so I'll have to extend it, but,
But also look at the section that you just sent us, or just passed around, which is in the drawings. Calls the house out as 20 foot 4 wide, and on your site plan, it calls it out as 20 feet wide. Not that it's a big difference, but
okay.
drawings don't match the site plan.
That was me,
How much time do you think you need? Is the next meeting enough? Do you
I
want?
can go tomorrow night. You guys wanna come back?
I don't think that's gonna happen.
30 days is
When's our
fine.
next meeting, Tony?
December 13th.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, does a member want to make a motion to continue
Oh,
this?
she's not gonna be here.
You're not gonna be here.
We can do it a different day, though.
Different day.
I'm okay with that. If we want,
Let
if the
me
board
know,
wants to.
because I have a couple of cases coming on for the 13th, so if we're gonna change it, I have to know, so I can.
Why don't we make that determination now? Why don't we determine now what the next meeting date is gonna be, so you can.
Because that, I have to let
You
them
gotta
know
notify- okay.
and see if they can make it. And it has to be advertised. I have to,
3 weeks.
I have to cancel.
Is everyone gonna be available that week other than the 13th? No? Are you out that whole week?
Yeah.
The whole week, okay. How about the following week? We're gonna be, between the 18th and the 22nd, so that Wednesday would be, I think, the 20th?
Yeah, the 20th.
Does that work for everyone? I mean, the holidays are tough, but
I know. It's the one time that that it's tough for us.
Can we get it the week before, like the first week of December?
It's the advertising and stuff, Tom. And
Well, you said 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
yeah, but it's like I have to get it, because next Monday is a holiday, I have to get it to them. I'm sorry, there's a holiday on Friday. I have to get it to them.
Well, all right, so let's go back to my question then. Is the week between the 18th and the 22nd doable for the board?
I can do any Wednesday, because it's.
Do any members have a problem with that week?
No.
Okay, so I propose the 20th, December 20th, it's a Wednesday night, so instead of the meeting on the 13th, we're gonna boot it out till the 20th. Does that work with everybody? Okay, so do we have them, I think we.
So you understand what the expectations are of the board when you come before us?
I think I'm pretty clear.
And what-
Not a two-story house, you prefer a 1.5-story house, just the same as all the other times. I get it, but I don't agree with it, but I get it, that's fine.
All right, so why don't we first make a motion to change the date of the
That's what I'm
meeting
doing now, repost to change the meeting
from
to.
the December 13th to Wednesday, December 20th. And I will make that as a form of a scheduling motion. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay, now I'll entertain a motion as to the applicant's request for continuance. Does anyone care to make that motion?
I'll make the motion that we have the continuance to the date we just stated for this case.
December 20th. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. See you on December 20th.
Thank you very much.
Okay, take care. Okay, next matter on the docket is case number 2917.
I need my folder back, Dan.
Yep, there you go. There you go, yep. This is case 2917, Doug Elfman, care of Phil Taylor Esquire, map 26, parcel 7D, and it's to appeal the decision of the inspector of buildings. The existing garage has an addition and no building permit was applied for or issued for the carport. A special permit was approved on September 26, 2007, to allow an existing carport to remain as it stands as shown on the plan for the life of the structure. Our records indicate that the special permit was not recorded at the Middlesex North Registry of Deeds. Therefore, it has lapsed and a building permit was never applied for or approved for the carport. The applicant has since constructed an additional bay to the garage and must now apply for a variance to encroach 0.3 feet from the side lot line when 15 feet is required for property located at 827 Main Street. So essentially, this is an appeal from the decision of the building inspector.
Yeah.
Yes, and Mr. Chair, if I may, I just have a letter I directed to the board to hand out.
And what's your name, sir?
Attorney Phil Taylor.
Okay, Phil.
And just as another point of clarification, the applicant is actually the Ida B. Elfman Family Trust. I don't know why it's said differently on anything else.
Oh, is that because Mr. Elfman is no longer with us, or the house has been put into trust?
The house has been in trust for
It's
quite some
interesting. It's on
time.
the application.
Okay.
Doug Elfman is the one who is handling it on their behalf, but the applicant is still the trust. And I just directed actually the trustee of the trust, Harvey Elfman, is actually with me tonight. A little
Okay.
camera shy, I think, so stay back there. But if I can just pass this letter, because what was delivered to me, and I'll pass these around that way. What was delivered to me, and I think one other individual on the mailing list, so I'm not sure if it went out to the butters, was a copy of the inspector of buildings file, which had a chain of events, which seems it was be prepared. So there was a couple inaccuracies I just wanted to point out, and just points clarification to make. And I also wanted to supply some relevant pictures that were referenced from back in 2007, but they've been disposed of from.
Okay, why don't you just, I guess, start off, I actually have a vague memory of this case. I think I was an associate member when it came before the board originally. But
I don't think you were part of it, but I think you were a member at the time.
I have a vague memory of the case, but why don't you just give a brief outline of the history of, and how we got here for the members?
So I guess, a brief history, not all of it, I think, would be relevant to the issues directly around tonight. Back in early 2007, so there's a pre-existing non-conforming garage on the property. Back in early 2007, a addition to that structure was commenced and built. In February of 2007, late February 2007, the then building inspector, who's the predecessor to the current building inspector, raised an issue, brought the issue up about it. It was constructed without a building permit. There was some discussions at the time referenced with the building department to get the matter before the Board of Appeals and apply for a special permit. Special permit was applied for, and it was actually granted. For, I guess, the events that transpired, I think, are heavily disputed, but leaving the part that isn't disputed, the special permit wasn't recorded, so it's a nullity. When they're unrecorded, they don't exist. And also a building permit, for other reasons I think will be very contested and not as relevant, wasn't applied for. And that's how the structure remained for over 10 years now. Earlier this year, a couple months ago, the roof on the house that's on the lot, another non-conforming structure, needs to be replaced. So that is a very small 4-room, single-story house with half a basement. And so determination was made, if we're gonna put a roof on, we want to bring it up. That would be something probably coming in the future with all the consideration, taking into consideration everything we heard from this board earlier. And when that was applied for, actually the application for that permit was made, and with reference in the building permit, it was never acted upon by the inspector of buildings. And then I think he references that it was returned without acting on it. Then, and one of the issues that came up was the addition to the garage structure. The third bay that's referenced, no idea what's being talked about. It's 2 bays, 2 doors. If you look on the front, there's a picture, I think, of in the file from the assessor's office that shows kind of from the street, where you can see the 2 doors, the 2 bays in front, and then the pictures that I provided tonight that were part of what the pictures were from 2007. That's just they show just the addition. Those pictures were taken back when it was constructed. So here we are to address the issue of the structure, appealing the building inspector's September 13th letter. And based upon the change in the statute that went into effect last year, the entire structure would be considered a pre-existing non-conforming structure. The future plan is to then come back before this board once this issue is pretty much resolved, to deal with the house, because to go up a 2nd story, there's going to need to be a special permit. And someone probably might bring up this is in the groundwater protection district. It is currently well over 15%. So anything that's going to be done on the property is going to require that special permit as well. We've actually already spoken to engineers to have a plan in place for whatever. I presume even getting a building permit to do the roof, presume we might need a special permit for that. So I'd entertain, I'm not sure where the board would like to begin.
Well, I guess, and again, this is going back a period of time, but just to give some historical perspective to the board, I was an associate member at the time, and I didn't actually take part in the deliberation, but I do remember the case. And from what I recall, I think your client was given some consideration because the hardship that would have been attributed to him had the vote gone in the opposite direction would have required that the thing be dismantled. And I remember at one point, he had gone forward and it had already been constructed, and there was a reluctance to force him to tear it down. If that's, my memory serves me on that, Tony. You were there, I don't know if you recall that.
Well, and actually, I was there, but my memory nor the minutes recall that as being any discussion.
This is the
during-
place right
during
across
any-
from Coke Membrane?
It is. During any open meeting, I don't recall any of that type of discussion. My notes don't refresh my recollection as to any of that type of discussion. So what you're describing, I don't think is reflected in the minutes as part of the open meeting or any other discussion that I recall as part of the open meeting. So I'm concerned with that discussion might.
Had the structure been constructed, it had already been constructed, and if the board had taken any action other than granting the permit, it would have required that the structure be dismantled, is that right?
That would have been an option to the board. If the board did not grant the special permit, then that would have been one of the remedies for the board. Due to the cost involved, it likely would have been appealed.
Right.
It's a-
I'm just saying, from what I remember about the case, it was kind of one of these things like, geez, it's already there, are we really gonna make this guy tear it down?
This is the
I guess-
2007 hearing?
Correct.
Yeah, and
The last line of the hearing basically says, motion made to approve the structure as it stands and is shown on the plan for the life of the structure, no more detrimental to the neighborhood. To me, the way that's worded, the life of the structure means, could mean that, what you're inferring, Dan, it's there, we'll let it stand for as long as it is, but it's as is, as long as it stands, and you're not gonna build anything or add anything to it.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
That's-
well,
The other thing too is, where I'm having trouble with this is, you know, so I'm just gonna read the violation, I'm reading it from Al Spalding's, writing. It says, "The existing garage is an addition that is not permitted. On September 26, 07, the special permit was to approve and allow the existing carport to remain as it stands and shown on the plan for the life of the structure." I get that. Where I'm having concern is, our records indicate that there is now a third bay added to the garage violating the terms of the approved special permit. There's a third bay added.
That was my mistake, it was a second bay added.
oh,
It appeared to be a
So it's a
two-car
second bay
garage
added,
that they added
but it-
that to.
But that's still in violation.
Right.
Okay, so at this time, this is the inspector, right? At this time, you need to correct the violation before going forward with any additional work on this property. So my question to you, sir, is, do you plan to make that correction?
well, that's another issue that I guess that's misunderstood. So I guess we got clarified, there is no third bay, that was an error in the letter. So this second bay, what's being referenced to the second bay is the structure, is the addition to the garage that was approved in 2007. So what I show, the pictures that I submitted, that opening, that's the addition. And if you look in the building department's file, the picture from the assessor, you can see the two doors in the back. The door to the right that's partly obstructed by a tree, that's the opening on the pictures I gave tonight. The space between the two doors, the one on the right actually comes out a little bit.
Let me try this again.
But there is no addition of a second bay.
Okay, so you're saying that the inspector was erroneous in saying that there was an additional footprint or addition to the special permit in 2007. That never happened. Is that what you're saying?
The footprint from 2007,
Was there anything added to that?
there's no addition to that footprint. And actually,
That's not what the inspector's saying.
I understand that's not what he's saying, and I don't know what the basis of that is. I would note that,
Tony, do we know,
The thing is that it was granted for a carport. When the decision, when we saw the assessors thing, it showed a another bay with the big garage doors on it.
No, but I'm saying, was there work done after 2007?
Yes.
Okay, was there
I'm
additional
just-
work that created a violation? Yeah.
It was, well, it was in violation.
No, but then it was okayed in '07.
But-
Yeah, that was never recorded. That
But-
special permit was never
Never
recorded with the
recorded.
registry of deeds, so it's null and void.
I
It
can-
it lapsed.
If I can address the footprint issue. So with the application I submitted here, I actually submitted the 2007 plot plan that shows what was done. I don't know if it's in the court's file, but I have a plot plan that was being prepared as part of the, what might become, what about the next thing that's not before the board, and I can submit that, and it shows the footprint, it's the same. So the footprint from 2007 is the same footprint that's there today.
Okay, so as far as what I'm saying, and this is only me, if that's the case, then I need a rewrite from the inspector, basically saying what the applicant is saying, because this is all we got to go on, right? Now, I can understand there's a mistake in the third bay, you know, I get that, that's okay. But he's saying quite differently than what the applicant is saying, right?
But in this, it was called let's clarify one point on
Yeah.
this. In the 2007 minutes, it was called a carport. To me, a carport is a roof on pillars with no sides on it.
Well,
I
that's
want
not
to,
my
I want to know if
interpretation of a
between
carport.
2007 and today, were walls put on that, and was it closed in to be an enclosed garage?
In 2007, before Mr. Perret, the building inspector at the time, did anything, these pictures are what was there. You can see from the front, the opening, the walls, the side between the fence, that fence, that's, I think, partly, I forget if it's a neighbor's fence or the Elfman's fence, but that fence, part of that fence is gone. And the neighbor's yard, basically, they go right up to, they use the side of the house as part of the boundary. But those pictures are from 2007, prior to anything coming before the town.
So these were part of the record from,
They weren't in my record,
No,
my record.
She threw them out. They were submitted with, in the minutes, you'll see that it's referenced. Mr. Taylor submitted photos.
I remember there were
You're,
photos.
you're
I
looking
remember
at,
there were photos.
you're looking at the photos. I was hoping that they wouldn't have been thrown out, disposed of from the town's file, but that's why I submitted them tonight, because they were disposed
so
of.
the term carport to me is an open-sided, just a roof structure. So it can, I don't know if there's any.
It wasn't closed.
It wasn't
I
closed.
I have a
All right, that's all I
specific
needed to know.
memory of that.
That's fine.
I
That's
can-
all I need to know.
I can address the carport, because the only recollection of where the carport term came from is being a term used by the building inspector at the time.
Okay.
Because under the zoning and everything related to it, it's structure. And when you look at the special permit where the Wilmington incorporates the minutes, and then before the special permit, in the minutes, it's discussed, and I think referenced, to talk about carport, but the actual special permit from the motion talks about structure. And I think it goes to, you can put a lot of different names on it, but under the special permit, which is a nullity, it was referenced as a structure, and that's what was approved. However, that's not really what the issue is, I think, before the board tonight. The issue before the board is an enforcement action where the building inspector has the burden to establish that there's a violation, and we're here to rebut that and put out that under 48 Section 7, once the structure is in existence for 10 years without a notice of an action recording in the registry of deeds, which I think we can all confirm the building inspector hasn't referenced the special permit being recorded nor a notice of an action recorded, then the structure becomes a pre-existing non-conforming use. Prior to 2016, the status of the structure was in limbo, but fortunately the legislature addressed that, and in 2016 they amended the statute to make it clear that it's a pre-existing non-conforming structure. And I presume that will be in the supplement to the Bobrowski book, which I don't see anyone with the supplement, I just see everyone with their
Do you have
Bobrowski books.
did you include the statute with your filing?
No, but I have a
Can I
copy.
just take a picture of it?
important parts are highlighted. You can keep that if you wish.
So your argument, Counselor, is that that your client is benefiting from the failure to record?
No,
No.
I would argue that that the building inspector, specifically, not the current one, failed to do anything at the time. It would be argumentative if the reasons, the conversations that occurred after the meeting about that were probably, might be a little disputed, but after the meeting, when steps were taken to bring it the next steps, it was basically told, go away, don't come back, I'm not taking anything from you. You got what you wanted, you know, you got what you wanted, it's there. I think he was upset about it, that's my personal opinion. And after that.
Well, I mean, and again, our memory or takeaway from the meeting may differ, but I'm looking in the minutes and it says here, Robert Doucette stated he had a problem with the carport, for lack of a better word, being less than a foot from the lot line. Edward Loud and Charles Boyle agreed, and then the next sentence, or two sentences later, it says, but then it was approved. The special permit was approved, which, hold on, counsel, which confirms my memory that it was kind of one of those things where everybody said, are we really gonna make this guy tear this down?
And here's where my issue is. I don't recall you at the meeting. I know you're not listed on the minutes as being
I
present.
was specifically at the meeting, and I remember this case, and I remember that it was at Coke Membrane, right across the street. I was there.
Okay, I don't,
They had associates at that point, where we sat there, but we didn't deliberate unless a member wasn't present, and then they would substitute us in.
I guess we have a little bit of different recollection, and that's not something I recall from the minutes on my notes.
And counsel, I'm not saying that I disagree with the decision, but I specifically remember that nobody expressed a desire to put your client through the process of tearing down something that had been clearly already built. That's all I'm saying.
And at the time, that was appreciated. However, events that happened after that, I think is what then led to part of where we are today, which events that don't really matter, I think, for discussion, because where we are today is at no time, well, you say my client benefited, I say at no time did anyone,
Why wasn't the special permit recorded?
that, I honestly don't know why it wasn't recorded. It might have been it might have not been recorded because the building inspector said he wasn't going to take an application for a building permit.
Well, again,
You weren't
well,
present for that.
He's not here to dispute it. I
That's-
mean, so what you're saying, no, I don't think it necessarily has a bearing on the hearing, but we don't have any way to confirm or deny what you're saying. All I'm asking is, why wasn't the special permit recorded?
And that's the question I answered.
Because you just figured that why bother?
I think based upon events that happened that, from what I just said, based upon the remarks that were made at the time, I don't think any steps were taken forward. And that same building inspector also never followed up on any of the other issues. So basically, I think what happened at the time, about a little over 10 years ago, what happened at the time is the permit was granted, and then two individuals had a clash, and the individual from the town, he made statements which,
Again, and I don't want to.
but that's why I don't want to go into those. That's-
No, but counsel, my question is friggin' simple, and you're not giving me an answer. Why wasn't the special permit recorded? You didn't need benefit of a building permit. You had a special permit that would have protected the structure. And I'm just asking the question, why wasn't it recorded with the Registry of Deeds? That's all.
And that, I don't have an answer for that.
Then that's fair. Then
My
that's an answer.
presumption.
All right, but to talk about extraneous arguments with a guy who's not here to talk to it isn't helpful. If you were the attorney at the time, you were representing your client, you got a special permit. In the ordinary course, the special permit is recorded with the Registry of Deeds, which would have availed you of protection that you now could use, frankly, and I'm just curious as to why it wasn't done. And if you don't have the answer, then that's fine.
I could give you a better answer, I wish I could. I guess
Okay,
the
fair
the
enough.
real answer is, no idea. And that would have become a larger issue 5 or 6 years ago, or even, 1 year ago or 2 years ago. That would have been a much different issue. But here we are over 10 years. And that's where we're in a situation which I don't think any of us really wanted to be in. But here we are with a structure that's been in existence for over 10 years. And by statute, I think it's clear that there's no notice of an action filed in the Registry of Deeds, of an action to, use their words, to compel the removal, alteration, or relocation of the structure for any violation. That doesn't exist. It's been in existence for over 10 years. I think the building department's own file supports that. So we're looking to overturn the September 13th letter and confirm that it's a pre-existing, non-conforming structure.
Tony, I actually didn't understand, I don't understand the process of filing the special permit. So is it the applicant that has to do it?
Yes, usually what happens is, when we give a decision, I send out the decision with what they have to do next. They have to bring it to the town, after 21 days, they bring it to the town clerk, she stamps it in, that there's been no appeal, and they go up to the Registry of Deeds, record the special permit, and then they come back and take out a permit with a copy of that special permit
So in
recorded.
the normal process, you would
We
not get a
would've
permit
picked-
without
Right,
that
right.
certification
We
from
will-
the board?
We would not issue a building permit without a recorded special
fact-
permit.
So how did,
I get it.
so did he ever bring it back?
I obviously not, because
You don't have it in your file?
I don't have any building permit, and that would have been a requirement. In order to get your building permit, you gotta show us that you recorded the special permit.
So can I ask a quick question though, but you were representing them then, and wouldn't you have, Sarah, Counselor, gotten it recorded?
Can't discuss.
Wouldn't you have?
You're asking me about conversations with my client.
No, no, I'm just trying to figure out, would it have fallen on the attorney representing the owner,
It's-
or?
it's whoever
The
the
applicant
applicant is.
after the decision, like it was said, after the decision, well, not everyone that gets a special permit or variance actually decides to go do anything with them. Sometimes people get them and then, for whatever reasons, decide not to record them. But typically, you go through the process, you'd record it. So you'd record it, and then you bring back the book and page number. And I believe the application for a building permit usually has a spot when a special permit is needed where that recording
No,
would.
we actually ask for a copy of the recording.
Yeah, easy enough to get, but they also, I think, most applications, I think it has a spot to put with a book and page for the special permit. And that would usually be the process.
So is it the expectation that you would have assumed that the
They'd take out a
owner,
building
the
permit,
owner
yeah.
would have come back and not somebody representing or?
No, usually a lot of times the attorneys
So
come
so
back, so.
theoretically, it was built illegally, right? Because it wasn't recorded. It's like it never existed. The special permit became null and void because it wasn't
They never
recorded, right?
And they never
So-
took out
so
the
we
building
have-
permit
we
after
have-
that.
We have a structure on a piece of land in Wilmington that is illegally built. Is that correct?
Which council is now saying is protected because it's been there for 10 years and nobody took action against it.
It's no longer, what I'm saying is it's no longer illegal.
Okay, so I think this is, I think, above my head, and I think most of us, maybe not the chair because he's an attorney, but I feel uncomfortable with, I'd like to see, get a reading from town council on this, and get the inspector back in with town council and try to figure this all out, if we can do it.
Well,
No, I
building
understand
inspector's
that.
here.
No, I know that, but I mean, I'm not gonna put him on the spot. I mean, he's hearing all this, he needs to go back and he has to think about what was discussed and come back with a reading. I mean, that's fair, give him some time to do that, right? And then I'd like our town council to look at this and get a reading on this, because this is a legal issue, and I don't think we're prepared to answer it, I really don't. It's just my
Wouldn't another way to do this would be, it was approved a while ago, right? He was here for the same reason. If we heard the case again, would we potentially come up with the same conclusion, issue a special permit?
But something's changed, though. There's been an addition put on it, right?
No.
Oh, no, there hasn't
No,
been.
what was built in
I-
what was built in 2007 stands today. And I guess for clarification, I'm not sure, the building inspector wrote a letter of September 13th that I'm appealing. So I guess I raised concerns and questions about that being modified as based upon the arguments in my appeal, and then I'd have to come back. And
Well, the way it's handled here, Counselor, is I'm an attorney, but I will be damned if I give legal advice to my own board. I can use it in guiding my own decisions, but if there's a member that wants to have the attorney who's charged with providing that advice to the board, then I think that's fair, it's
I
only
have no,
fair.
and that's a different issue, because I understand, I used to sit on a board in another town in a, kind of the same role as you, and questions would go to town council, and that's, I think, a different issue, if you want town council's opinion on
Well,
it.
I think if there's a question of whether there's a violation or not. There's a question of, in my mind, if something is not recorded, is it in fact null and void? There's a question of, like one of the members said, it's been approved. It hasn't really been approved because it's been approved by a board, but it became null and void, so theoretically it's not approved. So what's the legal sense in all of that? And before we can vote on this, I think we gotta get by all that.
All right, let's hear from the building inspector. Yeah, hold on, I want to hear from the building inspector, then you can chime in, but why don't you give us,
Al Spalding.
Al, give us your take on what's going on here.
All right, Al Spalding, the building inspector for the town of Wilmington. The synopsis of my opinion on this letter is that it was built without a permit. He came before the board, so at that point, that's where the 10 years stops, because he went before the board. Okay, so that was built before the date of the meeting, which was the board, he came in about 7 days too late for the 10 years to be considered. Let me see what we got here. You got 8/21, no, 9/13, I sent the letter out stating the violations. 9/26/07 to 9/13/17 is not 10 years. It's like 9 years and 360 days or something. You missed it by about 7 days. So I think that stopped the 10-year build without a permit thing.
So
The
you're
reason
saying
he-
the time when he came before the board in '07
Stopped.
told the 10-year period, is that what you're saying?
Yes, because at that point, he was coming before the board,
Right.
asking for permission to keep it. I believe the board made a mistake with a special permit because he was creating a variance request, not a special permit request. He was in,
Can I address two of those, well, you can address
well,
both of those points.
wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah, let him finish and then you can.
So what brought this to our attention was the garage door. A carport does not have a garage door. So once he put the garage door on it,
And when
that
was
was the
that?
modification from a carport to a garage.
When was that? When did he do that?
I don't know exactly when he did it, but I can tell you that
When did you discover it?
before
When he came-
9/13, but when he came in for the,
Hold on, Tony. Look, when did you discover that the carport, that it had a door on it?
8/21/17. We had a garage, had an addition not permitted.
Okay.
The special permit stated a carport, not a garage bay. That's what started the whole thing, was the garage door.
So the word carport is what triggered everything here.
Correct.
And that word carport, to be fair to the applicant, may have been erroneously originally used. Because I remember these pictures. I have a specific memory of this. And, I'm assuming that looks like the door maybe pushed up. That
There was
it's
no
some-
door there.
There's no door there, but,
I'll go with what they gave him back then,
right,
is what those pictures are. when he put the garage door on, he took it from a carport to a garage.
That's exactly.
And that's what started the ball rolling. Then when it came time to discuss it, I call him Phil. Phil and I got into a conversation about 40A and all of that there, and that's where the 10-year, the 6 and 10-year rule come in, and that's when I said, the 10-year rule stopped when you applied for the permit. If you want to go from there on, you missed it by 7 days. So that's why I don't believe the 10-year rule applies. I also believe that the special permit was an error. It should have been a variance because he wasn't increasing the nonconformity, he was aggravating. He was going further into the setbacks. That's a variance, that's not a special permit. So he would have to show soil, shape, and topography for a variance. Back then, I don't know, I can't answer for what went on back then. But basically, it's this board's decision what they want to do with it, but it comes down to that I looked at it as it's no longer a carport, it's a garage. And since you didn't since you didn't record it, it lapsed, and here we
So
are.
your take on it is that right now, the applicant needs the benefit of a variance by this board for that to remain as it is right there?
Correct.
Yeah, but also, I just want to add, so I agree with you on the garage door. That makes sense. So if he takes the garage door down, is he back in conformance as a carport?
No, because the special permit lapsed. That's what his whole take on it is. He believes that the special permit shouldn't have been issued, but it was. But even if you say, well, it's what's done is done, when it wasn't recorded, it lapsed. So now it's like back at stage one.
It's like it never existed.
Like it never existed. So now the building inspector that we have now, his opinion is that needs the benefit of a variance, not a special permit.
So again, in the legal sense of it, I'm just thinking through it. Does this mean that he owes back taxes on
Oh,
this?
I have no idea about that.
Well, see, you know, all
No,
of
they-
that,
other-
all of that plays in with the town. with the-
No, they'll tax him.
Right
They'll
here.
the assessor will go out and assess what
Yeah,
she
but I mean,
sees,
there's,
and they'll tax him.
there's 9 years and, whatever months of not paying.
No, he's been paying.
No,
The
no,
assess-
the-
the assessment is done every year.
But did they assess it as a carport?
They would have assessed by whatever they saw. I don't know.
Legally, they have to assess whatever
Yeah,
they
they
see.
assess what they see.
They assess what
Whether
they
it's
see,
legal
so
or really-
whether it's recorded or not.
Yeah, they have a picture of it, I mean, in there, kind
Okay,
of thing.
okay.
Yeah, I don't think the taxes are implicated. I think that believe me, they're gonna get your taxes no
Oh,
matter
they're
what.
getting taxes.
They're not gonna let that slide back.
Can I just address a couple of those points?
Yeah, sure.
One thing I know is, Richard, back in 2007, I don't know if there was a change, I don't know when changes in your zoning bylaws might have happened, but back in 2007, it was a special permit application, and in fact, the board's application was pre-completed for exactly this type. The box for special permit was pre-checked, the section of the zoning bylaw was pre-filled in. Why the board should grant the request was actually pre-filled in, because I have the application, and I did it in, everything else is handwritten, except for those when we got the application with the pre-filled in parts for this type of application. So I presume back then it might have been a more common type of request. So back then it was a special.
No, I think Tony can speak to that.
Dan Perret, he went with the special permit, extend a non-conforming. I'm assuming, because that's the application that he had. But that being said, now, today, you have a different zoning enforcement
Oh,
person
I
and with the different things.
What-
Now,
With regard to the 10-year time frame, so as I hear Mr. Spalding saying he's missed it by a couple days. So so he has a date in 2007. However, the end mark for that 10 years, under the statute, references a notice of action recorded in the registry of deeds.
Right.
So now, we're beyond the 10 years now, and the town has never recorded a notice of action in the registry
Yeah,
of deeds.
I don't think a letter from the building inspector would probably satisfy the statute.
No.
That- from what I'm reading here. But again, I take what Mr. Siracusa says to heart. You know, I think it's something, there are a lot of legal issues running around here. I think it is probably something that we should submit and get an opinion from council. Give them the entire mess. And then just tell them, look, we want legal guidance on everything, from the issue of the original special permit, The issue of that permit lapsing for non-recordation at the Registry of Deeds. We need an opinion as to General Law 40A, Section 7, and its applicability to this case with the 10-year window. We need his opinion as to whether the property, what the current status of the property is, and what type of relief council believes the property needs moving forward, whether it needs a variance, a special permit, or nothing. I think he needs to take a look at the whole thing.
Can I comment on a couple of that? I might say, I think with regard to the special permit, that special permit from 2007, I believe is a nullity. That I believe is in.
Yeah, but
in Bro- okay.
as long as we're having council look at it, I mean, he gets paid on a he gets paid on a retainer on this. I mean, a non-hourly basis.
Okay.
So we can let him take a good long look at it, and we should have him give it from all angles.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 out of 5 members of the board are lay people, and I think that we would need some direction from him on that.
Can I ask a question here?
Yep.
When you say the special permits, are you agreeing that it's null and void?
Yeah, 2 wasn't recorded as null and void. Special, but that's not the issue before the board. That, as far as I'm concerned, we
From the way
can
I-
pretend it never existed.
Counsel, the way I see it is, you think that the 10-year period set forth in 48 Section 7 protects your client and this property, and he's good that way. You believe that it needs a variance because the special permit, whether it was erroneously initially given or not, everybody agrees it's now no longer there. So your opinion is that for anything to be done with this property, it needs the benefit of a variance. Is that correct?
Almost.
All right, tell me what.
I gotta go with what he's saying, all right? So we're gonna wipe the special permit out.
Right.
Okay? His argument is the 10-year rule.
Right.
If the 10-year rule comes in, it all goes away.
Correct.
If the 10-year rule don't come in, then we're coming back to square one. We're not looking for a special permit,
And
we're
you,
coming
that's,
for a
that's
variance.
what I just said.
Right.
He believes the 10-year rule applies.
Right.
And you feel that if it doesn't apply, he needs a variance.
Right, except that you got the garage door and it's not a carport, but that's,
You know what, have that issue flagged too for council. The practical effect of the word carport, because if, look, if the special permit, everybody agrees is no longer applicable,
right. it's
then the
10-year
word
rule.
carport doesn't make a difference anymore.
Apply for a garage.
You can apply for a garage. I mean, the carport issue only exists because it was set forth that way in the special permit,
And I would note.
which everybody agrees is now poof, gone.
But what happens there is that the garage, when did it become a garage? It wasn't a garage 10 years. The door didn't go on 10 years ago.
It did. Yeah, the garage door's been over 10 years.
And how are you gonna prove that to me?
Actually, you have the burden of proof in an enforcement action.
Okay, so I think you got what we need, counsel. He needs to examine this patient from head to toe and give us an opinion as to
Yeah, I
what
was
direction
thinking
what direction the board should take on the application. Because I mean, it's gonna make a big difference if council believes we have to look at this as a variance and that the 10-year rule doesn't apply, you got your work cut out for you, to be quite honest with you.
Well, yeah, I could, well, 2 things I want to point out. Just one, because with that, the word carport, the March 12, 2007 letter, which is currently in the building department's file, from Mr. Elfman, it was referenced as just an addition, and that's why I believe it was actually from the town that word might have been coming up, because
I think we should be able to get that opinion
Yeah.
by the 20th,
that would be
right?
interesting. Yeah.
Could I ask one more, clarification? So when they came in 2007, it had been constructed without a permit. They got granted the special permit. So technically, there was no building permit in existence for it.
Still
So
isn't.
there's no right, but there's no record of they applied to build, or they were gonna build a carport. So there was no drawings, there was no building permit, there's no record of anything in the town. That's my understanding. So the only record that the town has is what was in the 2007 application.
The
which-
application does not exist.
Which doesn't exist anymore.
I can provide a copy if you'd like it.
I'd actually like to see it.
I'd have
Well,
to-
does it have any, is it just the application, or does it have any attachments to it?
Now, the town clerk would have the application,
And the attachments?
not the attachment,
No,
just the application.
I thought that was provided in our package, wasn't it?
No, not the application.
No.
The application is the
It's just
one
the
page, which is similar
findings.
today, an owner authorization.
All right, let me just take care of a housekeeping detail too. I'm gonna, I don't see anybody here, but I'm gonna, just to do it, I'm gonna open a public hearing. Anybody from the audience want to be heard on the matter? Seeing none, going once, twice, 3 times. Tony, can you make a note in the minutes that the public hearing on this matter is closed? So the next time you come before us, we'll just be deliberating with what town council has to give us, and then we can make a decision on your application. Okay, and then also, I'll read this into the record, but, you know, it may have no real practical effect, that the Planning and Conservation, at its meeting of Tuesday, November 7th, 2017, they recommended unanimously to uphold the decision of the building inspector, for what it's worth. And I think that there'll be probably, once we get a town council opinion, I think that would be a more measured recommendation, so.
And I have much of my file and anything electronically, if that benefits town council. Those photos might be something I have electronically.
What I'm gonna suggest to you, council, is if whatever you wanna have sent to town council, provide it to Tony, she'll put it in the package and send it along.
Oh, I don't have anything. I just didn't know if you communicate electronically. I already have a lot of the stuff electronically, just as a convenience sake.
It's already on, but
Okay.
I already have it on.
Well, then I'll entertain a motion to continue this hearing to our meeting of December 20th. Does somebody care to make that motion?
Yes, so moved.
And do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Or we have a motion and a second to continue the matter to December 20th, pending receipt of town council opinion. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Do you want me to email you those color photos rather than the ones I handed in tonight?
No, I'll just put it, I'll
Okay.
just, I can throw it in.
Okay.
Like I said, I have it, this is all PDF anyway,
Oh,
because it's not, if you go on the website, it's.
no.
All right. All right, sir, we'll see you on the 20th.
No problem.
Take care.
And you may not know this, but maybe tomorrow I'll give John and Lou my best.
Oh, you know them both?
I used to be there.
Oh, you used to work there?
Before I went out on my own. I probably left there, I was probably right around the 2007 or so.
You know, I was saying to Tony before the meeting, I'm like, that name sounds familiar. I might have seen it on some pleadings or something.
Maybe on some old stuff, I had an issue with Michael not long ago.
With
something.
Theodore, they're good guys.
Yeah, no, Michael was there back then, and then, and there was another matter, I didn't even realize when you guys moved over to where you are now.
Yeah, we're going to Boston next year.
Tony, these are extra, so. bring them.
Recycle.
All right, see you then. Take care.
Yeah. I don't know if you wanted to see a copy of it, it doesn't really show much. I don't know if you guys
No,
have done.
if it had anything pertinent to what they,
No, it has a horrible, like, original plot plan from, I don't know, the 70s. which
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't really show anything.
All right, take care. See you then. All right, do we have any administrative details we need to take care of, Tony?
Print out the minutes, so.
All right, so we'll defer. We'll have voting on minutes at the next meeting. Anything further that we need to discuss before we close the
So we're
meeting?
gonna repost, I just go over it again, December 20th for our next meeting.
Great.
Okay.
Would you mind sending out an email, just so I can have
I
it?
will send it all, because what I'll do is I have to first talk to the people that are coming
Yeah.
on the 13th and tell them that it's gonna be moved to the, if it's okay with them, it's gonna be moved to the 20th.
Okay.
I mean, I really don't wanna have to have 2 meetings in a row, but
We'll see if we can get it up. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Can I-
Oh,
can I have
hold on, you have a
point of
question?
reference?
Yeah, good.
So, point of reference, so what he was saying that the board has to figure out the burdens on us when the structure actually was built? Is that, you know how he's saying, he was like, well, the burden's on.
the building
um,
inspector.
The building inspector when
Right.
when it was built.
Right. The burden is on the building inspector.
of when, how is he supposed to know when it was built?
Exactly. Well, how are you gonna hold them to account if you don't
We
determine when it's
went back
built?
to the assessors records, that's why you'll notice that we have
Right.
assessors records there and stuff.
Right.
What I could figure out is that, in the beginning of like 2006, 2005, 2006, I have a aerial that shows just the garage
Okay.
with nothing. And so I don't know when those pictures were done. But when you're Google and stuff, like, sometimes it comes up without that last bay, whatever it is that he's got there. So, I mean, we went through, I went through everything with a fine tooth comb.
Okay.
So,
All right.
that's why I gave you everything that me and Al found
Great.
on
Give
it.
it to town council. We'll take it from there. Anybody else have anything?
I do.
Yep.
For a special permit, the requirement for any application to go before the, I forget what it was, the Conservation Commission or the Board of Health for a septic system, that has nothing to do with the special permit application. That's a requirement for a building application.
Right,
correct?
but what usually happens is that when someone applies to us, I send out, everything I send you, I send to the Board of Health, Planning, Conservation, Engineering, so that if they have issues, they can get back to me.
Right, but if we approve a special permit to do something,
Yeah.
which involves a new house and a septic system, just because we gave them the special permit, if for some reason the Board of Health says, well, this septic system doesn't work, doesn't matter that we issued it, they can't build it if they can't
can't
produce
get
a proper septic system. So
right.
there's no onus on us to put any type of requirement that it be reviewed by the health department, because it's automatically gonna be done, correct? It
Yeah,
has to be done.
yeah, they have to meet Board of Health regulations
Before
as far
they,
as.
that's a step, that's a check on the
They
list
won't get a
before they go to the
building,
building permit.
they won't
That's
get
all
a
I
building
wanted.
inspection.
All right, that's fine,
That's what I'm saying, so.
that's fine.
When all the boards are done and everything is said and done, it's the building inspector that says good to go.
Right.
And he has a requirement to make sure all of the committees are agreed to it.
Everybody
and-
signed
and
off on
signed off
the
on it, right?
application, and that's.
Yeah, so that's the stop, that's the point where.
That's where, and that's why a special permit or a variance, if you came here to get it, to do your addition, in order for you to get that permit, like I tell everybody, you can go around and get your signatures, but I can't take it for Al to review until you have that recorded special permit or
So
variance.
this is the fail-safe, right?
And so this one, I didn't get that because they never applied for a building permit, so I never said, well, where's your recording? Because people, they have to record in order to get the permit. So it was like, it was that catch-22 where we didn't know about this until they applied to the Board of Appeals this summer to do stuff. And that's when all this came about.
Okay.
So, just as a history, that's how all this came about.
We have a
So-
motion to adjourn on the table. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion adjourned. Thank you.